The stillness of a late autumn afternoon blankets the English countryside as our story begins. The year is 1891, and the leaves have turned to rich amber and crimson, floating down from ancient oaks that line the winding road to Blackwood Manor. A horse-drawn carriage makes its way along this path, carrying within it our protagonist, Edmund Holloway, a photographer of some renown in London circles, though not so celebrated as to reject commissions that take him to the remote corners of the countryside. Edmund clutches his leather case containing his prized possession, a Newman and Guardia camera, one of the finest examples of photographic technology of the age. At 35 years of age, Edmund has documented everything from society weddings to archaeological expeditions, but it is his artistic eye that has earned him special notice. He has a particular talent for capturing the essence of his subjects, revealing something of their inner character that they themselves might not wish to be seen. The carriage jostles over the uneven ground as it approaches the imposing silhouette of Blackwood Manor. The driver, a taciturn man who has barely spoken a word during the 3-hour journey from London, brings the horses to a halt before the grand entrance. "We've arrived, sir," the driver announces, his voice carrying the rough accent of the local area. "Blackwood Manor." Edmund steps down from the carriage, his boots meeting gravel that crunches underfoot. He pays the driver, who seems unusually eager to depart, whipping the horses into motion almost before Edmund can retrieve his bags. Before him stands Blackwood Manor, a Victorian mansion of imposing proportions, its facade of weathered stone speaking to generations of wealth and influence. Ivy climbs the walls, reaching toward windows that reflect the fading light of day. The air is cold, carrying the damp promise of fog that will soon blanket the grounds. Edmund adjusts his overcoat and approaches the entrance, where a brass knocker in the shape of a raven's head awaits his touch. 3 firm knocks, and the heavy oak door creaks open to reveal the stern countenance of a butler, his posture rigid, his expression unreadable. "Mr. Holloway, I presume," the butler says, his voice as starched as his collar. "Lord Blackwood is expecting you. I am Harrington, the head of household staff. Please follow me." Edmund follows Harrington through the grand entrance hall, his footsteps echoing on marble floors. The interior of Blackwood Manor is a testament to old money. Persian rugs, mahogany furniture, oil paintings of stern-faced ancestors, and hunting trophies that stare down with glass eyes from mounted positions on the walls. "His lordship has requested that you begin work immediately," Harrington informs him, leading him through a maze of corridors. The family portrait is of utmost importance to Lord Blackwood, particularly the photograph of the young master and his companion. There's something in Harrington's tone, a slight hesitation perhaps, that catches Edmund's attention. But before he can inquire further, they arrive at the library where Lord Blackwood awaits. Lord Charles Blackwood stands by a grand fireplace, a tumbler of brandy in his hand, the flames casting dancing shadows across his aristocratic features. At 50, his once dark hair is now streaked with silver, but his posture remains that of a military man, shoulders squared, chin raised. "Ah, Mr. Holloway!" Lord Blackwood greets him, not moving from his position by the fire. "Your reputation precedes you. I trust your journey was not too arduous?" "Not at all, Lord Blackwood," Edmund replies, bowing slightly. "I'm honored to receive your commission." Lord Blackwood nods, taking a sip of his brandy. "Yes, well, time is of the essence. My son Theodore has been rather difficult about sitting for portraits. The boy is 8 years old and has developed a peculiar temperament since the passing of his mother 2 years ago." Edmund offers his condolences, which Lord Blackwood acknowledges with a curt nod. "The boy has formed an unusual attachment to a pet," Lord Blackwood continues, a shadow passing over his features. "A cat he found on the grounds shortly after my wife's passing. A rather odd creature, but it seems to comfort the boy, so I've allowed it to remain. I wish for you to photograph Theodore with this animal. It may be the only way to get him to cooperate." Edmund nods, hiding his surprise. It's unusual for aristocracy to commission formal portraits, including pets, but he's not one to question his client's wishes. "When would you like to begin, my lord?" Edmund asks. "Tomorrow morning. The light in the east drawing room is most favorable then," Lord Blackwood replies. "Harrington will show you to your quarters. You'll dine with me tonight, and we shall discuss the specifics of what I require." Harrington leads Edmund to a guest chamber on the 2nd floor, a room that, while comfortable, carries a chill that seems impervious to the fire crackling in the grate. As Edmund unpacks his equipment, he notices a small figure at his door, a maid, young and wide-eyed, clutching fresh linens to her chest. "Begging your pardon, sir," she says, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've brought fresh towels for your washstand." "Thank you, Miss Lily, sir. Lily Thornton." As she places the linens on a side table, Edmund notices her hands trembling slightly. "Is everything all right, Miss Thornton?" he inquires. Lily glances nervously toward the open door, then back at Edmund. "It's not my place to speak of the family's affairs, sir." "Of course not," Edmund agrees. "But if there's something I should know about my commission here." Lily hesitates, then speaks in a hushed tone. "It's just, be careful around young Master Theodore, sir, and that cat of his. There's something not right about either of them, if you don't mind me saying." Before Edmund can inquire further, Harrington appears at the doorway, his stern gaze causing Lily to curtsy hurriedly and scurry from the room. "Dinner will be served at 7, Mr. Holloway," Harrington announces, as if he hasn't witnessed the exchange. "Lord Blackwood dines punctually." Left alone, Edmund contemplates the maid's warning. In his line of work, he's encountered all manner of peculiar clients and situations, yet something about Blackwood Manor and its inhabitants stirs an unease within him that he cannot easily dismiss. Dinner is a somber affair in the grand dining room, with just Edmund and Lord Blackwood seated at opposite ends of a table that could comfortably seat 20. The food is excellent but plain: roast beef, potatoes, and vegetables, served by silent footmen who move like ghosts around the periphery of the room. Lord Blackwood speaks little during the meal, but as dessert is served, a simple apple tart with clotted cream. He finally addresses the purpose of Edmund's visit more directly. "My son Theodore will meet you tomorrow morning," he says, his fork poised over his dessert. "I must warn you, he can be challenging. Since his mother's passing, he's become withdrawn. The only creature he seems to connect with is that cat of his, a black thing with the most unnerving eyes I've ever seen on an animal. Children often find comfort in animals after a loss," Edmund offers. Lord Blackwood's expression darkens. "Perhaps, but there's more to it than mere comfort, I fear. Sometimes I hear him speaking to it, having full conversations as if the creature could understand. And the way it watches me." He trails off, then seems to catch himself. "Forgive me, Mr. Holloway. The hour grows late, and I find my mind wandering to fanciful notions." "Not at all, my lord. May I ask about the specific requirements for the portrait?" "Yes." Lord Blackwood straightens in his chair. "I require a formal portrait of Theodore, and one with that cat of his. I've commissioned a painter from London as well, but I understand photographs capture something different, something truer, perhaps. I want to see my son as he truly is." There's something in Lord Blackwood's tone, an undercurrent of fear, perhaps, that Edmund finds difficult to interpret. "I shall do my best to capture the essence of your son, my lord," Edmund assures him. Lord Blackwood fixes him with an intense gaze. "That's precisely what I'm afraid of, Mr. Holloway." With that cryptic statement, Lord Blackwood rises, signaling the end of dinner. "Rest well. Tomorrow will be a demanding day." Edmund returns to his chamber, his mind full of questions. As he prepares his equipment for the morning's session, a soft scratching at his door catches his attention. Opening it, he finds the corridor empty, save for a small black cat sitting just beyond the threshold, its yellow eyes regarding him with unsettling intelligence. "Hello there," Edmund says softly, crouching down. "You must be Theodore's companion." The cat doesn't move, its gaze unwavering. In the dim light of the corridor, its eyes seem to reflect more than they should, as if harboring depths beyond mere animal instinct. After a long moment, it turns and pads silently away, disappearing into the shadows. Edmund sleeps fitfully that night, his dreams filled with shadowy corridors and yellow eyes that watch from darkness. Morning brings pale sunlight filtering through fog that clings to the grounds of Blackwood Manor. Edmund rises early, arranges his equipment in the east drawing room as specified, and awaits his young subject. The room is grand but austere, with tall windows, heavy velvet curtains, and furniture that speaks of generations of wealth. Edmund selects a high-backed chair upholstered in dark green velvet as the setting for the portrait, positioning it to catch the best of the morning light. At precisely 9 o'clock, the door opens, and Theodore Blackwood enters, followed by Harrington. The boy is small for his 8 years, with pale skin that seems never to have seen sunlight, dark hair combed neatly to the side, and eyes of such a deep blue they appear almost black in certain lights. He wears a formal suit that makes him look like a miniature version of his father, complete with a pocket watch chain. In his arms, He cradles the black cat Edmund encountered the previous night. The animal is still, unnaturally so, its yellow eyes fixed on Edmund with the same unsettling intensity. "Master Theodore, this is Mr. Holloway, the photographer your father has commissioned." Harrington introduces them. Theodore doesn't speak, merely regarding Edmund with a gaze that seems too old for his young face. "Hello, Theodore," Edmund says, adopting the gentle tone he uses with all his young subjects. "That's a fine cat you have there. Does it have a name?" For a moment, Theodore remains silent, and Edmund wonders if the boy will speak at all. Then, in a voice that is surprisingly clear and articulate for a child his age, Theodore responds, "His name is Mephistopheles," the boy says, "but I call him Meph. He's not a it, he's a he." "Of course," Edmund corrects himself. "My apologies to both you and Meph." The faintest smile touches Theodore's lips. Gone so quickly, Edmund almost believes he imagined it. "Shall we begin?" Edmund gestures to the chair he's positioned. "If you would sit there, with Meph on your lap, we can take the first photograph." Theodore moves to the chair and sits, his posture perfect, no doubt the result of strict training. Meph settles on his lap, still watching Edmund with those unblinking yellow eyes. "Perfect," Edmund says, positioning himself behind his camera. "Now if you could look directly into the lens, please." Theodore does as instructed, his expression solemn. As Edmund prepares to capture the image, he notices something strange. The boy's pupils, already dark, seem to expand, consuming the blue of his irises until his eyes appear as black as midnight. Edmund hesitates, blinking rapidly. When he looks again, Theodore's eyes appear normal, a trick of the light perhaps, or a product of his restless night. "Please remain very still," Edmund instructs, proceeding with the photograph. The flash powder ignites with a bright flare, and the image is captured on the photographic plate. "Excellent," Edmund says. "Shall we try one more, from a slightly different angle?" Theodore doesn't respond verbally, but adjusts his position slightly. Meph, however, turns his head to face Edmund directly, and for a moment, Edmund could swear the cat's eyes change, the pupils expanding until they consume the yellow, revealing what looks like something else within. A face, perhaps, though that would be impossible. Edmund shakes his head, dismissing the notion. The strain of travel and the peculiar atmosphere of Blackwood Manor are clearly affecting his perceptions. They proceed with several more photographs, each one carefully composed. Throughout the session, Theodore remains unnervingly still and silent, speaking only when directly addressed, and then only in short, precise sentences. Meph never leaves the boy's lap, never fidgets as a normal cat might. As the session concludes, Edmund notices something odd about the final photograph as he removes the plate. There seems to be a peculiar haziness around Theodore's eyes, a phenomenon he's never encountered in his years of photography. "I believe we have what we need for today," Edmund announces, concealing his concern. "Thank you, Theodore. You've been an excellent subject." Theodore rises, Meph still cradled in his arms. "Will you develop the photographs here?" he asks. "Yes, I've brought my portable darkroom equipment," Edmund confirms. "I'll set up in the room Lord Blackwood has provided for that purpose." "I'd like to watch," Theodore says, his tone making it clear this is not a request, but a statement of intent. "I'm afraid that won't be possible, young master," Harrington interjects. "The darkroom must remain sealed against light, and the chemicals used are not suitable for a child to be around." Theodore's expression doesn't change, but something flashes in his eyes. A brief flicker of anger, perhaps, or something deeper. "Very well," he says after a moment. "Meph and I shall see the results later." As Theodore leaves the room, he pauses at the door, turning back to Edmund. "Be careful with our likeness, Mr. Holloway," he says, his voice suddenly different, older somehow, and layered with meaning Edmund cannot decipher. Some things once seen cannot be unseen. With that cryptic warning, Theodore departs, leaving Edmund with an inexplicable chill, despite the warm sunlight now filling the room. Edmund spends the afternoon setting up his portable darkroom in a small, windowless room in the west wing of the manor. The process of developing photographs requires complete darkness, and Edmund works by touch and timing, his hands moving with the confidence of long practice as he processes the photographic plates. As the images begin to emerge in the chemical bath, Edmund feels a growing sense of unease. There's something unusual about these photographs, particularly around Theodore's eyes. In each image, the boy's pupils seem larger than they appeared in person, almost unnaturally so. Edmund dismisses this as a quirk of the lighting or the photographic process. Children's eyes often appear different in photographs than in life, a phenomenon he's observed many times in his career. Yet, as he hangs the photographs to dry and examines them more closely by lamplight, his professional curiosity gives way to a deeper disquiet. In the most striking of the images, Theodore sits rigid in the high-backed chair, Meph on his lap, both boy and cat staring directly into the camera. Theodore's eyes appear as black pools, the pupils so dilated they consume the iris entirely. And within those pupils, when Edmund holds the photograph close to the lamp and squints, there seems to be something else, a reflection perhaps, though not of the room or Edmund himself. Instead, there appears to be another face, faint but discernible, looking out from within the boy's eyes. Impossible, Edmund mutters to himself, setting the photograph aside and rubbing his tired eyes. He's been working in the dim light for hours. His vision is playing tricks on him. A knock at the door startles him from his thoughts. "Mr. Holloway?" It's Lily, the maid from the previous day. "Lord Blackwood requests your presence in the library. He wishes to see the results of this morning's session." "Of course," Edmund replies, gathering the dried photographs. "Please inform his lordship I'll be there shortly." As Edmund follows Lily through the corridors of Blackwood Manor, now cast in the golden light of late afternoon, he finds himself studying the photographs again, particularly the one that had disturbed him. In the clearer light of the corridor, the anomaly in Theodore's pupils is less distinct, yet still present. A suggestion of something that shouldn't be there, a face that isn't Theodore's own. Lord Blackwood awaits in the library, a glass of brandy already in hand despite the early hour. His expression is tense, his manner distracted as he paces before the fireplace. "Ah, Holloway," he says, noticing Edmund's arrival. "The photographs, you have them?" "Yes, my lord," Edmund replies, laying the images on a large mahogany desk. "I believe you'll find them satisfactory. Young Theodore was an excellent subject." Lord Blackwood approaches the desk, his movements stiff, and examines the photographs without touching them. His expression shifts subtly as he studies each image, a complex interplay of emotions that Edmund finds difficult to interpret. Relief, concern, fear. "These are precisely what I feared," Lord Blackwood murmurs, almost to himself. Then, more clearly, "You've done excellent work, Mr. Holloway. The likeness is uncanny." "Thank you, my lord," Edmund responds, hesitating before adding, "If I may, there's an unusual aspect to one of the photographs that I cannot readily explain." Lord Blackwood's gaze sharpens. "Show me." Edmund indicates the photograph that had disturbed him in the dark room. "If you look closely at Theodore's eyes, particularly the pupils, there seems to be something reflected there. A face, perhaps, though I cannot account for such a reflection, given the positioning of the camera and subject." Lord Blackwood takes the photograph with trembling hands, holding it close to his face, then at arm's length, his expression growing increasingly agitated. "Do you see it, my lord?" Edmund asks. "I see it," Lord Blackwood confirms, his voice hollow. "I've seen it before, though never so clearly captured." He sets the photograph down carefully, as if it might bite. "Tell me, Mr. Holloway, do you believe in possession?" The question catches Edmund off guard. "Possession, my lord? As in a body inhabited by something other than its rightful soul," Lord Blackwood clarifies, his tone deadly serious. "A vessel for an entity that does not belong in our world." Edmund chooses his words carefully. "I consider myself a man of science, Lord Blackwood. I deal in what can be captured by my camera, in light and shadow and silver nitrate. But I've traveled widely and seen things that defy easy explanation." Lord Blackwood nods, seeming to approve of this measured response. "Then perhaps you are the right man for this situation after all." He moves to a cabinet, withdraws a key from his waistcoat pocket, and unlocks it, revealing a collection of books bound in dark leather. He selects one and returns to the desk. 2 years ago, my wife Eleanor died under circumstances that the local doctor described as heart failure. Lord Blackwood begins, his fingers tracing the embossed cover of the book. But Eleanor was young, just 32, and had never shown any signs of heart trouble. Her death came suddenly, in the night, while I was away in London on business. Lord Blackwood opens the book, revealing it to be a journal filled with elegant handwriting. Eleanor kept detailed diaries. After her death, I found this, her final journal, which she had hidden in a compartment in her writing desk. What I read there? He trails off, shaking his head. It defies belief, and yet, having observed my son these past 2 years, I cannot dismiss it. Edmund waits, sensing that Lord Blackwood is building to something significant. According to Eleanor's writings, Theodore began to change after his 8th birthday, some 3 months before her death. He had always been a bright, cheerful child, but suddenly became withdrawn, speaking little, and when he did speak, using words and concepts beyond his years. And then there was the cat. Meph, Edmund supplies. Yes, Mephistopheles, Lord Blackwood confirms, his expression darkening. A name no child of 8 would choose without influence. The cat appeared one night, according to Eleanor, during a terrible storm. Theodore claimed to have found it in the garden, half drowned, and brought it inside. Eleanor, having a soft heart for animals, allowed him to keep it, despite her own misgivings about the creature. Lord Blackwood turns pages in the journal until he finds a particular entry, which he indicates for Edmund to read. The handwriting, though elegant, betrays a trembling hand. October 15th, 1889. I fear for my son's soul. There is something wrong with that cat, something in its eyes that is not animal but something ancient and malevolent. I have caught Theodore speaking to it in a language I do not recognize, words that sound like no tongue of this earth. And worse, I have heard it respond, not in meows or purrs, but in whispers that raise the hair on my neck. Last night I observed them from the doorway of Theodore's bedroom. They sat facing each other on the bed, boy and cat, their eyes locked, and I swear before God that I saw something pass between them, a shadow, a mist, something that moved from the cat's eyes into Theodore's, causing his pupils to dilate until his eyes were black as pitch. When he turned to look at me, it was not my son who gazed out from those eyes, but something else, something that knew me and hated me. I must consult Father Ambrose. There are old stories about this land, about what was here before Blackwood Manor was built. I fear we have disturbed something that should have remained at rest. Edmund looks up from the journal, finding Lord Blackwood watching him intently. Eleanor consulted Father Ambrose, the local priest, the very next day. Lord Blackwood continues. He provided her with information about the history of this land, information I had never been told when I inherited the estate. Apparently, before Blackwood Manor was built in 1820, this hill was the site of a pagan temple, a place where, according to local legend, the boundary between our world and another was particularly thin. And you believe this has something to do with Theodore and the cat? Edmund asks, struggling to reconcile his rational mind with the implications of what Lord Blackwood is suggesting. I believe, Lord Blackwood says slowly, that whatever entered our home in the form of that cat has now taken residence in my son. Eleanor believed it too, and was attempting to find a way to exorcise it when she died. Her last diary entry speaks of confronting the entity, of demanding it leave Theodore. The next morning she was found dead in her bed, her face frozen in an expression of such terror that the maid who discovered her body fell into hysterics and had to be sedated. Lord Blackwood closes the journal, his hand lingering on its cover. I've consulted specialists, Mr. Holloway. Doctors, priests, even those who claim expertise in the occult. None have been able to help, and all the while, Theodore grows more distant, more other. The only evidence I have of what might be happening is what you've captured in this photograph. Proof that something else looks out from behind my son's eyes. Edmund studies the photograph again. The unease he'd felt earlier now crystallizing into something approaching dread. What would you have me do, Lord Blackwood? I'm a photographer, not an exorcist. I would have you take more photographs. Lord Blackwood replies. Different angles, different lighting. Perhaps in the chapel on the grounds. Consecrated ground might provoke a reaction. I need evidence, Mr. Holloway. Evidence that I can present to those with the knowledge and authority to help my son. Edmund considers the request. Everything rational within him rebels against the notion of possession, of entities from beyond our world. And yet, the evidence of the photograph, combined with the genuine fear in Lord Blackwood's eyes, gives him pause. I will help in any way I can. Edmund finally agrees. But I must warn you, Lord Blackwood, I cannot guarantee that photography will reveal what you seek. It already has. Lord Blackwood responds, tapping the photograph. This is the first tangible evidence I've had that I'm not losing my mind, that what Eleanor wrote in her journal might be true. Continue your work, Mr. Holloway. Photograph my son in different settings. And be careful. Whatever inhabits him knows we suspect, and it will not relinquish its hold easily. As if summoned by their conversation, a soft knock sounds at the library door. Harrington enters, his expression as impassive as ever. Master Theodore requests permission to view the photographs, my lord. the butler announces. Lord Blackwood and Edmund exchange a glance. "Tell him he may come in," Lord Blackwood decides, gathering the photographs quickly and selecting only a few to leave visible on the desk. Moments later, Theodore enters, Meph cradled in his arms as always. The boy's gaze immediately goes to the photographs on the desk, then to the ones Lord Blackwood has hastily tucked into the journal. "Are those my portraits, father?" Theodore asks, his voice carrying that same unsettling maturity Edmund had noticed earlier. "Some of them, yes," Lord Blackwood replies, his tone carefully neutral. "Mr. Holloway has done excellent work." Theodore approaches the desk, setting Meph down beside the photographs. The cat immediately sits, its yellow eyes fixed on the images with an intelligence that sends a chill down Edmund's spine. "May I see all of them?" Theodore inquires, his gaze flickering to the journal where the more disturbing photographs are hidden. "These are the best," Lord Blackwood deflects. "The others had technical flaws. Isn't that right, Mr. Holloway?" Edmund, catching Lord Blackwood's meaning, nods. "Yes, issues with exposure and focus. These represent the finest results." Theodore studies the selected photographs, his expression unreadable. Then, without warning, Meph leaps onto the journal, causing Lord Blackwood to start backward. The cat sits atop the journal, its tail swishing slowly, its gaze now fixed on Edmund with what can only be described as calculation. "Meph is curious about the other photographs," Theodore says, a strange smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "He thinks there might be something interesting in them." "The cat thinks," Edmund begins, then catches himself. "That is, I assure you, there's nothing of interest in the technically flawed images." Theodore's smile widens slightly, his eyes taking on that same darkness Edmund had observed during the photography session. "Meph knows when people are not being truthful, Mr. Holloway. It's one of his many talents." Lord Blackwood clears his throat, clearly uncomfortable. "That's enough, Theodore. It's nearly time for your lessons with Mr. Harris. You should go prepare." For a moment it seems as if Theodore might object. Then, abruptly, he nods. "Very well, father. Come, Meph. We have more important matters to attend to." The cat rises, stretching with feline grace before jumping into Theodore's waiting arms. As they turn to leave, Theodore pauses, looking back at Edmund. "I look forward to our next session, Mr. Holloway," he says, his voice carrying a subtle threat that belies his young years. "Perhaps we'll discover even more interesting reflections." After Theodore departs, a heavy silence falls over the library. Lord Blackwood collapses into a chair, passing a trembling hand over his face. "You see," he says quietly, "that is not my son. Not entirely. And that creature is no ordinary cat." Edmund cannot deny the unnatural quality of the interaction they've just experienced. "When would you like to proceed with the next series of photographs?" "Tomorrow morning in the chapel," Lord Blackwood decides. "Be prepared, Mr. Holloway. If what I suspect is true, the entity may resist being photographed in a consecrated place." That evening, Edmund dines alone in his room, having requested a tray rather than joining Lord Blackwood. He needs time to think, to process what he's witnessed and the fantastic claims Lord Blackwood has made. As a man who has built his career on capturing reality through his lens, Edmund finds himself in the uncomfortable position of questioning what reality truly encompasses. After dinner, he examines the photographs again, particularly the one showing the strange reflection in Theodore's eyes. Using a magnifying glass from his equipment case, he studies the image more closely. What he sees causes him to sit back in shock. The face visible in Theodore's pupils is not, as he first thought, a mere trick of light and shadow. It has distinct features, ancient, withered, with eyes that even in the two-dimensional photograph seem to stare back at the viewer with malevolent awareness. A soft scratching at his door pulls Edmund from his examination. Rising cautiously, he crosses the room and opens the door a crack. The corridor is empty, save for Lily, the maid, who stands several paces away, her expression fearful. "Mr. Holloway," she whispers, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "May I speak with you?" "It's about the boy and that cat." Edmund ushers her inside, closing the door behind her. Lily stands awkwardly in the center of the room, wringing her hands. "I shouldn't be here," she says, her voice trembling. "If Master Theodore knew I was speaking to you." "You have nothing to fear from a child," Edmund assures her, though his own encounter with Theodore has left him less certain of this than he would like to be. Lily laughs, a brittle sound with no humor in it. "That's just it, sir. He's not just a child, not anymore. Not since that cat came." "Tell me what you know, Lily." Edmund encourages her, gesturing for her to sit. She remains standing, too agitated to accept the courtesy. "I've been at Blackwood Manor since before Master Theodore was born," Lily begins. "I was lady's maid to the mistress. God rest her soul. I helped raise the boy. Such a sweet child he was, kind and full of laughter. But then came the storm, and that cat, and everything changed." Her account matches what Lord Blackwood had shared from his wife's journal, but Lily adds details that paint an even more disturbing picture. "The mistress was frightened of it from the first," Lily continues. "Said there was something wrong with its eyes, that it watched her in a way no animal should. But Master Theodore had taken to it so completely that she couldn't bear to separate them." Lily moves closer, lowering her voice further. "The night before the mistress died, I overheard her confronting Master Theodore in his room. She demanded to know what had happened to her real son, said she knew something had taken him. And the boy, he laughed, sir. Laughed in a way that froze my blood. And then he spoke, but it wasn't his voice. It was deeper, older, like something ancient was using his mouth to form words." "What did he say?" Edmund asks, dreading the answer. "He said, 'Your son is still here, Eleanor. He's watching from inside, screaming where no one can hear him. And soon, you'll join him.'" Lily crosses herself. "The next morning, the mistress was dead. Her face, I can't describe it, sir. No natural death leaves a face like that." Edmund thinks of the photograph, of the withered face peering out from Theodore's pupils. "And since then, has Theodore, or whatever controls him, harmed anyone else?" Lily hesitates. "Not directly, no. But there have been accidents. A stable boy who mistreated that cat, found trampled in a stall with a horse that had never shown a day's temper. A tutor who attempted to separate Master Theodore from the cat during lessons, fell down the main staircase, broke his neck. And last winter, Father Ambrose, who had been counseling the mistress before her death, was found frozen in the snow just beyond the chapel, though he'd been in perfect health and knew these grounds well. And Lord Blackwood, has he not considered sending Theodore away? To a school, perhaps? Or to specialists who might help him? "He's tried," Lily says grimly. "Twice he's arranged for masters from prestigious schools to come and evaluate Master Theodore for admission. Both times the masters left in a state of agitation, refusing to accept the boy. And as for doctors," she shakes her head, "3 have come. 1 left declaring there was nothing wrong with the boy. 1 suffered a seizure during his examination and had to be carried out. And 1, her voice drops to a whisper, 1 cut his own throat the night after examining Master Theodore, right here in this very room where you're staying." Edmund feels a chill that has nothing to do with the evening air. "Why are you telling me this, Lily? What do you expect me to do?" "I don't know, sir," Lily admits. "But when I heard Lord Blackwood had commissioned a photographer, I thought perhaps your camera might see what our eyes cannot. And now that you've taken the boy's likeness," she gestures to the photographs on Edmund's desk, "perhaps you've captured evidence of what we're dealing with." Edmund considers showing Lily the disturbing photograph, but decides against it. The fewer people who know about it, the better, at least until he better understands what it reveals. "I appreciate your candor, Lily," he says instead. "I'll be taking more photographs tomorrow in the chapel. Perhaps they will provide the answers Lord Blackwood seeks." Lily's eyes widen. "The chapel? Be careful, sir. That ground is consecrated. If there is something unholy in Master Theodore, it won't take kindly to being brought there." After Lily departs, Edmund finds sleep elusive. He lies awake, listening to the old house creak and settle, imagining footsteps in the corridor outside his room, the soft pad of a cat's paws, the whisper of voices in a language no living tongue should speak. When sleep finally claims him, his dreams are troubled. Visions of Theodore and Meph, their eyes merging until he cannot tell boy from cat, both staring at him with the same ancient malevolence. And behind them, shadows moving against deeper shadows, taking forms that human minds were not meant to comprehend. He wakes with a start just before dawn, his nightshirt soaked with sweat despite the chill in the room. The fire has died during the night, and Edmund shivers as he rises to stoke it back to life. As he kneels before the hearth, a soft sound catches his attention, a rhythmic scratching, like claws on wood, coming from the door to his room. Edmund freezes, listening intently. The scratching continues, followed by a low, rumbling sound that might be a cat's purr if a cat were the size of a tiger. Then, unmistakably, a child's voice, Theodore's voice, yet not, speaking words in a language Edmund has never heard, each syllable seeming to slither into his mind like oil on water. Gathering his courage, Edmund approaches the door. The scratching and the voice cease immediately. Silence hangs heavy for a long moment before Edmund grasps the handle and pulls the door open in one swift motion. The corridor is empty, stretching in both directions, lit only by the gray light of approaching dawn filtering through distant windows. No sign of Theodore or Meph. Yet, as Edmund is about to close the door, he notices something on the polished wood floor. Claw marks, fresh and deep, scoring the door at about the height a cat might reach if it stood on its hind legs. Edmund touches the marks, finding them warm to the touch, as if the wood itself retains the heat of whatever made them. A warning, perhaps, or a promise of what is to come. Morning brings weak sunlight struggling through perpetual fog, casting Blackwood Manor in a ghostly light that does little to dispel the shadows in its corners. Edmund meets Lord Blackwood for a tense breakfast, during which neither man speaks much of the previous day's revelations. It's as if by daylight, the horrors discussed in the library seem too fantastic to acknowledge directly. "Theodore will meet us at the chapel at 10, Lord Blackwood informs Edmund as they finish their meal. "I've told him it's for a different perspective for the portraits, nothing more." "Do you think he, or what controls him, suspects our true purpose?" Edmund asks. Lord Blackwood's expression darkens. "I'm certain of it, but it will comply for now. It's been careful to maintain the illusion that Theodore is merely an unusual child, not a vessel for something other. Too many questions would be raised if he refused a simple photography session." The chapel sits at the edge of the Blackwood estate, a small stone building that predates the manor itself. According to Lord Blackwood, it was built in the 14th century, when the land belonged to a monastery long since dissolved during the Reformation. The monks had built it apparently to sanctify ground that local legends held to be a place of pagan worship, a site where the veil between worlds was thin. Edmund arrives early to set up his equipment, positioning his camera to capture the altar as backdrop. The chapel is simple but beautiful, with stained glass windows depicting saints and martyrs, their faces serene in eternal contemplation. Yet, despite the sacred imagery, Edmund feels an undercurrent of unease in the space, as if two opposing forces meet here in perpetual, silent battle. Lord Blackwood arrives precisely at 10, leading Theodore by the hand. The boy moves reluctantly, his steps dragging, Meph clutched tightly to his chest. The cat's eyes are wide, darting around the chapel as if mapping escape routes. "Good morning, Theodore," Edmund greets the boy, forcing a cheerfulness he doesn't feel. "I thought the chapel would make a magnificent setting for your portrait. The light through the stained glass is particularly striking." Theodore says nothing, his expression blank, but his grip on Meph tightens visibly, causing the cat to emit a low growl. "Where would you like me to sit?" Theodore finally asks, his voice flat. Edmund indicates a bench positioned before the altar. There would be perfect. The light falls just so, and the altar makes a fitting backdrop. Theodore approaches the bench slowly, each step seeming to require effort, as if he walks against an invisible current. Lord Blackwood watches from near the chapel entrance, his hand in his pocket where Edmund knows he keeps a small silver crucifix, a precaution suggested by Father Ambrose before his untimely death. As Theodore sits, Meph suddenly leaps from his arms, landing with feline grace on the stone floor. The cat hisses, its back arched, yellow eyes fixed on the altar behind Edmund. "Meph doesn't like it here," Theodore says, and for the first time, Edmund hears something in the boy's voice that sounds genuinely childlike, a note of confusion, perhaps even fear. He says it hurts. "It's just a chapel," Edmund says gently, wondering if he's addressing Theodore or whatever might be controlling him. "Nothing to fear here." "That's not true," Theodore responds, his voice shifting again, taking on that unsettling, mature quality. "This place was built on older foundations. The monks thought their stones and crosses could contain what sleeps beneath, but they were wrong. It waits, Mr. Holloway. It has always waited." Lord Blackwood steps forward, his expression tense. "Theodore, that's enough. Sit still for Mr. Holloway's photograph." Theodore turns to his father, and Edmund sees it happen, the boy's pupils expanding, consuming the blue of his irises until his eyes are black pools, reflecting nothing. "You should not have brought us here, Father," Theodore says, his voice now utterly changed, deeper, resonant with age and malice. "You should not be meddling in affairs beyond your comprehension." Lord Blackwood falters, his hand clutching the crucifix in his pocket. "I want my son back," he says, his voice breaking. "Whatever you are, whatever you've done with Theodore, I demand you release him." A smile spreads across Theodore's face, too wide, too knowing for a child of 8. Your son is here, Charles. He sees everything. Shall I let him speak? Would you like to hear what he has to say about his mother's final moments? Lord Blackwood pales but stands his ground. You will not taunt me, demon. I know what you are, what you've done. Edmund, sensing the situation spiraling beyond control, intervenes. Perhaps we should postpone this session, he suggests, moving to stand between Theodore and Lord Blackwood. Theodore's black gaze shifts to Edmund. The photographer thinks he can capture me with his little machine of light and silver, he says, the smile still fixed on his face. Go ahead, Mr. Holloway. Take your picture. See what looks back at you. Despite every instinct urging caution, Edmund feels compelled to do just that. If there's evidence to be captured, proof of what inhabits Theodore, now is the moment. He positions himself behind his camera, focuses the lens on Theodore's face, particularly those black, bottomless eyes. Remain still, Edmund instructs, his voice steadier than he feels. As he prepares to trigger the flash, he notices movement at the edge of his vision. Meph, circling around behind him, yellow eyes fixed on his back. The flash powder ignites with a bright flare, momentarily blinding everyone in the chapel. In that instant of artificial daylight, Edmund hears a sound that will haunt him for the remainder of his days. A scream, not from Theodore's mouth, but somehow emanating from within the boy, as if something inside him recoils from the light. As Edmund's vision clears, he sees Theodore slumped on the bench, his eyes closed, his body limp. Lord Blackwood rushes to his son, cradling the boy in his arms. Theodore! Theodore! Lord Blackwood calls, panic evident in his voice. Slowly, Theodore's eyes open, blue again, clear and confused. Father? He says, his voice now truly that of a child. Where am I? What's happening? Before Lord Blackwood can respond, a blur of black fur launches itself at Theodore. Meph, hissing and spitting, claws extended toward the boy's face. Edmund reacts instinctively, grabbing the cat mid-leap. The animal twists in his grasp, slashing at his hands and arms with unnatural strength, drawing blood. Get it away from him! Lord Blackwood shouts, pulling Theodore to his feet and backing toward the chapel door. Edmund struggles with the cat, which fights with a ferocity no domestic animal should possess. Its yellow eyes are wild, pupils contracted to slits, and as it hisses at him, Edmund swears he sees not a cat's teeth but something else. Rows of needle-like fangs that no feline jaw should contain. With a surge of desperate strength, Edmund flings the cat away from him, toward the altar. Meph lands on the stone surface with a yowl that sounds almost like words, its back arched, tail lashing. We need to leave now, Edmund urges, backing toward Lord Blackwood and Theodore. Whatever connection was between them, it's broken for the moment, but I don't think it will remain so for long. They retreat from the chapel, Lord Blackwood carrying Theodore, who seems bewildered, like a child waking from a deep sleep. Meph remains on the altar, watching them go, making no move to follow, prevented perhaps by the consecrated ground, or simply biding its time. Back at the manor, Lord Blackwood summons the family physician to examine Theodore, who has no memory of the past 2 years, nothing since his 8th birthday, the day, according to Eleanor's journal, when the change in him began. The boy is confused, asking repeatedly for his mother, causing Lord Blackwood visible pain each time he must explain that she is gone. While the doctor is with Theodore, Edmund develops the photograph taken in the chapel. His hands shake as he works, not just from the scratches inflicted by Meph, which burn as if infected, but from anticipation of what the image might reveal. The photograph that emerges from the chemical bath exceeds his worst expectations. Theodore's face is captured in perfect clarity, but his eyes are not merely black. They are windows into somewhere else. And peering out from those windows is a face that defies description, ancient beyond reckoning, withered yet somehow vital, with eyes that hold knowledge no human was meant to possess. It is the face of something that has worn many forms across many ages, something that has walked the earth when it was young and mankind was but a distant possibility. And beside Theodore, captured in mid-leap, is Meph, but not as a cat. The photograph shows the creature's true form in the moment of the flash, a twisted, shadowy thing with too many limbs, a mouth that splits its face in a grin filled with needle teeth, and eyes that match those peering out from Theodore's pupils. It is reaching for the boy, claws extended, as if to reclaim what it has lost. Edmund stares at the image, understanding now what has happened. The entity, whatever it is, had been using both the cat and Theodore as vessels, perhaps unable to fully inhabit either one alone. The flash of the camera in the consecrated space of the chapel had momentarily driven it from Theodore back into the cat, breaking the connection between them. But for how long? As night falls over Blackwood Manor, Edmund shares his findings with Lord Blackwood. They sit in the library, the disturbing photograph between them on the desk, a decanter of brandy providing false courage. "We must act quickly," Lord Blackwood says, his voice low. "Theodore is himself again, but for how long? That thing will try to reclaim him." "The cat must be destroyed," Edmund says, the words feeling strange in his mouth. He has never advocated for violence against an animal, but Meph is clearly no ordinary cat. Perhaps that will end this. Lord Blackwood nods grimly. "I've sent for Father Jensen from the village. He's young but dedicated. He'll perform a blessing on Theodore and the house. As for the cat," he reaches into a drawer and withdraws a revolver. "Silver bullets. An old superstition, perhaps, but I'll take no chances." "The cat was still in the chapel when we left," Edmund reminds him. "It may remain there, trapped, or it may have found another way out," Lord Blackwood counters. "These old buildings have many secrets, many passages. We must be vigilant." A soft knock at the library door interrupts their conversation. Harrington enters, his normally impassive face showing signs of strain. "My lord, the physician has completed his examination of Master Theodore," the butler announces. "He reports that the boy appears physically well, if somewhat disoriented. He has given him a mild sedative to help him sleep." "Thank you, Harrington," Lord Blackwood responds. "Has there been any sign of the cat?" Harrington hesitates, then replies, "No, my lord. No one has seen it since the incident at the chapel. I've instructed the staff to be watchful and to report any sighting immediately." After Harrington withdraws, Lord Blackwood turns back to Edmund. "We should check on Theodore. If that creature attempts to reconnect with him, it will likely do so while he sleeps." They make their way to Theodore's bedroom, a large chamber that still bears the touches of Eleanor's hand. Children's books on shelves, toy soldiers arranged on a table, a rocking horse in one corner. Theodore lies in a four-poster bed, the bed curtains drawn back, his small form barely making a bump beneath the heavy covers. Lord Blackwood approaches quietly, Edmund following. In sleep, Theodore looks truly like a child again, his face peaceful, free from the unnaturally adult expression it had worn under the entity's influence. Lord Blackwood brushes a lock of hair from his son's forehead, a gesture of tenderness that speaks volumes about the love buried beneath his stern exterior. "He's dreaming," Lord Blackwood whispers, noticing the rapid movement beneath Theodore's eyelids. "I pray they are a child's dreams, not nightmares of what he's witnessed these past 2 years." Edmund is about to respond when a sound reaches them. A soft scratching, familiar and chilling, coming not from the door, but from the window. Both men turn to see yellow eyes staring in at them from the darkness beyond the glass. Unblinking, filled with malevolent intelligence, Meph has returned. Lord Blackwood raises the revolver but hesitates to fire. The noise would wake Theodore, and the breaking glass might send shards toward the bed. The cat seems to understand this, its mouth opening in what Edmund could swear is a mocking grin. "We need to lure it away from here," Edmund suggests urgently. "Away from Theodore." Lord Blackwood nods, moving toward the door. "The library. It's seeking the photograph, the evidence of its true nature. It will follow us there." They back away from Theodore's bed, watching as Meph's gaze follows them. The cat's claws scratch at the glass, not seeking entry, not yet, but reminding them of its presence, its patience. In the corridor, they move quickly toward the library, and as Edmund glances back, he sees Meph leap from the windowsill, disappearing into the darkness. The creature is indeed following, but not in a direct line. It moves through shadows, around corners, always just at the edge of perception. The library feels like a sanctuary as they close the heavy door behind them. Lord Blackwood immediately moves to the desk where the photograph still lies, picking it up and studying it again. "We must destroy this," he decides. "If the entity wants it, there must be power in the image, perhaps a connection to its true form that it fears might be used against it. Edmund is not so certain. Or perhaps it simply wishes to eliminate evidence of its existence. That photograph is proof, Lord Blackwood. Proof that might convince others of what we face." Before Lord Blackwood can respond, a new sound reaches them, not scratching this time, but a child's voice, calling from the corridor. "Father, Mr. Holloway, where are you?" It's Theodore's voice, but with that unnatural adult quality they had heard in the chapel. Lord Blackwood raises the revolver, pointing it at the library door. "That's not my son," he says, his voice breaking. Theodore is asleep in his bed, sedated. "Father, please," the voice continues, now right outside the door. "I'm frightened. I had a terrible dream. Please let me in." Edmund moves to Lord Blackwood's side, placing a hand on his arm. "It's trying to manipulate you," he warns. Theodore is safe in his bed. This is the entity, using his voice. The door handle turns slowly, though Edmund is certain they locked it. Lord Blackwood raises the revolver higher, his hand trembling. "Step back from the door," he calls out. "Whatever you are not welcome here." A laugh responds, a child's laugh twisted into something ancient and cold. "Not welcome? This has been my domain since before your kind learned to speak, Charles Blackwood. Your family built their house on my ground, and I have claimed my due. First your wife, now your son." The door begins to open, revealing not Theodore, but Meph, sitting in the corridor, yellow eyes gleaming in the dim light. Behind the cat, shadows move and twist in ways that defy natural law, forming shapes that hurt the eye to perceive. "You cannot stop what has already begun." The voice continues, now emanating not from the corridor but from the cat itself, its mouth moving to form words no animal throat should produce. "The boy is mine. The woman was mine. And you, Charles Blackwood, you will be mine as well." Lord Blackwood fires, the report of the revolver deafening in the confined space of the library. The silver bullet strikes true, hitting Meph squarely in the chest. The cat's body jerks backward, a sound escaping it that is neither animal nor human, a howl that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere, a sound of rage and pain that makes the very air vibrate. Black ichor, not blood, sprays from the wound, sizzling where it touches the floor. Meph's form seems to collapse in on itself, the yellow eyes dimming, the unnatural life fading. But as the creature dies, a shadow seems to rise from it, formless at first, then taking shape, a writhing darkness that coalesces into a figure that towers to the ceiling, limbs too long, face a twisted parody of human features. "You think silver can end me?" the thing hisses, its voice now a chorus of whispers that seem to come from the walls themselves. "I am older than your metals, older than your gods. I have worn 1,000 forms, and I will wear 1,000 more." The shadow lunges toward Lord Blackwood, who fires again and again, each silver bullet passing harmlessly through the insubstantial form. Edmund, acting on instinct, grabs the photograph from the desk and thrusts it toward the entity. "This is your true form," he declares, his voice steadier than he feels. "Captured and bound by light and silver, named by my camera, as surely as any ancient ritual might name you." The shadow pauses, seeming to regard the photograph with what might be fear, if such a thing could know fear. It stretches a limb toward the image, then recoils as if burned. "Names have power," Edmund continues, inspiration striking him. "And this photograph names you. It binds you to form, to substance, to law." The entity shrieks, a sound that makes both men clap their hands to their ears. It lashes out, knocking books from shelves, shattering glass, but it does not approach the photograph Edmund holds. "By light and silver, by image and reflection, I bind you," Edmund improvises, drawing on half-remembered legends and folklore. "Return to your own realm. Release the boy. Trouble this house no more." The shadow writhes and twists, its form becoming less distinct, more fluid. It seems to be fighting against something, some force that pulls at it, drawing it back toward the cat's lifeless body. "This is not ended," it hisses, its voice fading. "The boy is marked. I will return." With a final inhuman shriek, the shadow collapses back into Meph's body, which contorts unnaturally before falling still, truly dead now, the yellow eyes glazed and empty. Silence falls over the library, broken only by Lord Blackwood and Edmund's ragged breathing. They exchange a glance, neither quite believing what they've witnessed, neither knowing if it's truly over. A new sound breaks the silence, running footsteps in the corridor, and Lily's voice, high with panic. "My lord, Mr. Holloway, come quickly. It's Master Theodore." They rush from the library, following Lily to Theodore's bedroom. The boy is sitting upright in bed, fully awake despite the sedative, his eyes wide with fear but clear, normal blue, no sign of the black pools that had signified the entity's presence. "Father, Theodore cries, reaching for Lord Blackwood, who gathers him into his arms. There was something in my dreams, something dark. It was calling me, trying to pull me away. It's gone now, Theodore. Lord Blackwood soothes, holding his son close. It can't harm you anymore. Edmund watches the reunion, relief washing over him. Yet a shadow of doubt lingers. The entity's final words echo in his mind. The boy is marked. I will return. In the days that follow, Theodore shows no sign of returning to his unnatural state. He is a normal 8-year-old boy, confused by the 2-year gap in his memories, grieving for the mother he has effectively just lost, but healing under his father's attentive care. Meph's body is burned, the ashes mixed with salt and buried at a crossroads miles from Blackwood Manor, following traditions older than Christianity. Edmund completes his commission, providing Lord Blackwood with a series of portraits of Theodore, normal photographs showing a solemn but ordinary child. The disturbing image from the chapel, however, Edmund keeps, sealing it in a lead case lined with silver, a precaution that feels necessary, though he cannot fully explain why. As he prepares to depart Blackwood Manor, Edmund has a final conversation with Lord Blackwood in the library, which has been restored to order after the entity's violent manifestation. I cannot thank you enough, Mr. Holloway, Lord Blackwood says, pouring them each a glass of brandy. Your quick thinking, your extraordinary intervention, you've given me back my son. Edmund accepts the glass, but does not drink immediately. I fear it may not be over, Lord Blackwood. The entity's final words trouble me. The boy is marked. I will return. Lord Blackwood's expression sobers. I've considered that possibility. Father Jensen has blessed the house. Blessed Theodore. I've consulted experts in occult matters who suggest protective measures. We will be vigilant. And the land itself? Edmund inquires. If the entity is bound to this place as it claimed, I've considered selling the estate, Lord Blackwood admits. But would that not merely pass the danger to another family, another innocent child? No, better we remain, knowing the threat, prepared for it, should it return. Edmund nods, understanding the logic, though he's not certain he would make the same choice. The photograph, he says, touching the lead case in his pocket. I believe it should be kept safe, but separate from Theodore. The entity seemed to fear it, or at least to recognize some power in it. Keep it then, Lord Blackwood decides. Take it far from here. Perhaps distance will weaken any connection it might represent. As Edmund boards the train that will carry him back to London, he carries with him not just the lead case with its disturbing contents, but questions that will haunt him for the remainder of his days. What was the entity that possessed Theodore? How many others like it might exist in the world's dark corners? And can such things ever truly be defeated, or merely temporarily banished, waiting for the right moment to return? In his studio in London, Edmund locks the lead case in a safe behind a false wall, telling no one of its existence or contents. He continues his career as a photographer, but never again accepts commissions involving children and pets. Some nights, he wakes from dreams of yellow eyes and pupils that expand to reveal ancient, malevolent faces. On these nights, he checks the safe, assuring himself that the case remains sealed, the photograph contained. Years pass. Edmund hears occasionally from Lord Blackwood, brief letters reporting that Theodore continues well, showing no signs of the entity's influence. The boy grows, attends school, develops into a young man of promise. Each letter eases Edmund's fears slightly, though he never fully dismisses them. In 1910, 19 years after the events at Blackwood Manor, Edmund receives a telegram informing him of Lord Blackwood's death from pneumonia. The estate passes to Theodore, now 28 years old. Edmund sends his condolences but does not attend the funeral, having no desire to return to Blackwood Manor. 6 months later, a package arrives at Edmund's studio. Inside is a letter in Theodore's hand, thanking Edmund for his role in the events of 1891, though admitting his memories of that time remain fragmented. Along with the letter is a photograph, a formal portrait of Theodore as a young man, handsome and serious, his eyes clear blue with no hint of darkness. Edmund studies the photograph carefully, using his strongest magnifying glass to examine Theodore's pupils. They appear normal, reflecting only the studio lights used by the photographer. No hidden faces, no glimpse of ancient malevolence. Perhaps it truly is over. As Edmund places the photograph in a drawer of his desk, he notices something unusual, a small black hair caught in the corner of the envelope that contained Theodore's letter, a cat hair. In the final paragraph of his letter, Theodore had mentioned, almost as an afterthought, that he had recently acquired a pet, a black cat with the most remarkable yellow eyes, found wandering the grounds of Blackwood Manor during a thunderstorm. Edmund's hand trembles as he slowly closes the drawer, a chill spreading through him despite the warm summer day. He thinks of the lead case in his safe, of the entity's final words, "The boy is marked, I will return." And he wonders, as darkness falls over London, how many forms the ancient evil might take, how patient it might be, how endlessly it might wait for its chance to return to what it considers its rightful domain. The soul of a Blackwood heir, the grounds of Blackwood Manor, the thin place between worlds where it has dwelled since time immemorial. The final image that remains with us is not of Theodore or Blackwood Manor, but of Edmund Holloway, an old man now, sitting in his dimly lit studio, staring at the safe behind the false wall, knowing what it contains. A photograph of a little boy whose eyes reveal another face, a warning from the past, a glimpse of a horror that may never truly be vanquished, only temporarily contained. And somewhere, in a grand house in the English countryside, a black cat with yellow eyes sits on the lap of a man who was once a little boy, both of them gazing out into the gathering darkness, waiting.